Èzili nanano senti ma paix monter Sénégal Haïti Èzili nanano Èzili maîtresse foi dans la omega kai moi dit nanano moi senti ma paix monter Sénégal tout pays Compère général Jean-Baptiste ou taloué Kailao mesdames yo levé point yo na main yo ya pe coupé collé yo di mesdames yo tout bout point yo na main yo ya pe si maillé l'espoir Èzili nanano moi senti ma paix monter moi Sénégal tout côté
Hello, everybody.
Tout ton soleil va lever. La rose fait banda, tout ton soleil va lever. La rose fait banda, tout ton soleil va lever. La rose fait banda, tout ton soleil va lever. La rose fait banda, tout ton soleil va lever. La rose fait banda, tout ton soleil va lever. La rose fait banda, tout ton soleil va lever. La rose fait banda, tout ton soleil va lever. Oh, Èzili nanano, di Èzili nanano. Senti ma paix monter, moi Sénégal.
Hello, everybody.
Èzili nanano, di Èzili nanano. Moi senti ma paix monter, moi Sénégal. Tout côté. La rose fait banda, tout ton soleil va lever. La rose fait banda, tout ton soleil va lever. La rose fait banda, tout ton soleil va lever. La rose fait banda, tout ton soleil va lever. La rose fait banda, tout ton soleil va lever. La rose fait banda, Haiti, Haiti, oh Lord,
Hello, everybody. This is Èzili Dantò. We are in our final third teach-in for the Free Haiti movement. Today is the 22nd, 229 years ago. The greatest revolution to ever happen to humans in recorded history began. And this is our teach-in for the Free Haiti movement. The Free Haiti movement provides 6 teach-ins per year. I'm going to get to that in a minute. I want to introduce you to tell you our featured guests. Also, those of you who were in the waiting room, you got the contact information. And it's always also on our album on the Free Haiti movement. If you're looking to contact us, if you're looking to support us, if you're looking to find out what the work is about. So this is the contact page. We have today with us, we've had 2 already, and those 2 webinars on the 14th, which was the beginning of the Haitian Revolution, which was the BòKayMan ceremony, or BòKayManboInan ceremony, or BòKayManboInan ceremony. Our history was not written by us, but those that we beat in combat. They came back. The Jesuits and the French priests came back and had something to do with the confusion in our history. And I'm hoping today to lift up and get rid of some of that confusion. So we've had Nganzaza. Those of you who missed it, he is the current gatekeeper of the Lakou, which is a family compound at the location where the BòKayMan revolution started. Before that, we had Grandbois, who has done the BòKayMan reenactment and celebrated it for 30 years now in New York. And he was an example of what it means to live voodooist. If you miss it, it's on YouTube. And today, we have the powerful Professor Bayyinah Bello. We're going to get to Professor Bayyinah Bello. But before then, and before I introduce you to our most powerful guest, I obviously wanted to have a female energy, because a lot of our women are not exposed with regards to the work they put in for this revolution to happen. And Bayyinah Bello is one of the few out of 13 million Haitians who has put in the work. And you will see that today. Now, you all know I'm a human rights lawyer. I run the Free Haiti movement. I run the Èzili network, the Haitian Lawyers Leadership Network, and our purpose is to live the culture, promote the culture, and the values of the culture. If you want to support that work, you're more than welcome to purchase ZiliD designs. You will find when you purchase ZiliD designs, 2 veves. Those are the sort of cosmic hieroglyphics, because Haiti, or Haïtien, the people of this culture, are a people who recognize spirit, who speak to spirit, and who understand archetypes. I have said this many, many times. We are original, not aboriginal, to the planet. So you will find Ogu, the representative of the male energy, the father, the soldier, the protector. For us and for me at Haiti, Ogu is, to me, the ultimate Ogu, is the greatest hero who ever lived, of course, Jean-Jacques Dessalines. Though we begin the year with Free Haiti movement from the 12th to the 22nd with the Vodun Council to begin the Haitian Revolution, and then the Haitian Revolution, which started today on the 22nd. Our next teaching is going to be on Jean-Jacques Dessalines, and that's from September 20th to the end of October. And then we have May 18th, which is just the final battle of the Haitian Revolution, where we beat 3 European powers and many, many European mercenaries who came in to put their little 2 cents in and got their butts kicked by the women like Marie Sainte-Dédé Basile, like Gran Toya, like there is a woman that I want to mention, because when I first did years ago, when I first started studying BòKayMan, and you all, and there was so many conflicting information, I've always done performance poetry. So you can find the BòKayMan performance pieces. They're on the internet. And I have Ceremony BòKayMan somewhere. I'm going to read a little bit of it today. But before then, I wanted to finish saying to you that the 2 energies we lift up is the male and the female. And that's what you see on those shirts, because that is balance in the universe from where Vodouists come from. And so each of the lois are a representative of different characteristics and phases of those 2. Out of primordial space came 2, les marasas. And our cosmology is always 1 and 1 makes 3. So we are a metaphysical people, a mathematical people, a scientific people. So one of the things that I'm here to promote as I do these teaching is that if it can't be explained, it's probably not my grandmama's Vodun. I want that to be very, very highlighted for you. So if it can't be explained, because we are a mathematical, scientific people, we go back millions of years. The European, he might go back 6,000 years on this planet. We are the people of the sun, which is a sword and a shield. And also one of the reasons we are where we are today, because we cannot believe that a sentient being would put profit over people. As we move on to the next slide here, let me share with you my screen. I was thinking of doing that. What did I just do, Mike? Okay. Okay. Let's see, here we go. All right, so, all right, some of you who've been with me for the last 16 years know nothing starts here until this song. You guys ready? I think this is going to be a really, really informative presentation, because not only do we have here the amazing, great Bayyinah Bello, historian, scholar, author, cultural activist, grandmother. We also have one of my favorite all-time freedom fighter, Professor Smalls, who will be introducing his great friend and my friend, Bayyinah Bello. The heart. They have taken the son out of her womb and made him the Sacred Heart, the Abrahamic religions. The representation of Èzili Dantò, who is the spiritual mother of Haiti, who is the archetype. And we're going to talk about some of the historical Èzili Dantò of the Haitian Revolution. I tend to say that she has a dagger in her heart because she has to pull it out. She cuts out evil with good. Now, some of the points I want to make in this presentation. For years now, I have wondered if ManboInan out of La Sucre, which is a compound that's in Guanaïve, Haiti, is the same as ManboInan in BòKayMan. And today I'm going to try to answer that question. Also, I want to tell you, and I want people to understand, that if I had been there at BòKayMan, that sacrifice that people talk about constantly, that pig, who would it have been? It would not have been anything other than the representation of all that is bad and all that needed to be annihilated. And I'll let you figure that one out. Now, in the last presentation, we saw Ungan Zaza, Medzaza, who talked to us about BòKayManboInan, located on the Mezir plantation. This is where he was born, and this is what he is the keeper of that sacred space. He talked to you about the Loire there, Brise Montagne, and we saw that, okay? We are a people who remember, and as we remember, we resurrect. So essentially, most of our history that is true is found in La Prière Guinée, and it's found in our songs, and it's found in our stories. And you're going to hear, I hope, some of that with Professor Bello. But as we go, right, you remember last time we talked about, this is BòKayMan, the location. And on the inside, we saw the ManboInan. We saw how the shrine is presented, and this is today. We saw Macandal, who came out of that same habitation, plantation. And so you have a visual of exactly what's happening in Haiti and as it was celebrated and looked like this August 14th. All right, now, what I want to talk about is how this, okay. Mike, I'm trying to get this thing, oh, let me just, so that you can take it. Okay, so Christopher Columbus, the rapist, came into Haiti, 1492, and he met there, not just what they call the Taínos. If you go to Caracol in the north, those were Black people. And if you've seen some of my work, I've told you some of the various Black African folks that actually lived on this island. Now, there was, after 300 years of enslavement, and when I say enslavement, the type of terror that the French practiced on our parents and grandparents and the enslaved was horrific. They might just cut out a woman's breast They might disembowel you. They might just decide that they wanted to stamp you with their name. They did all kinds of things. So when the négresse, right, as I said before, we are not totally sure who the woman was at BòKayMan. There is Cécile Fatima, which we've been told. There is Manbo Marionnette, which we've been told. There is Marie-Louise Bumba, which we've been told. So there's many names here, all right? And I am sure one day we will be able to say it was this, okay? I'm going to give you some directions, but I want to say there were 2 meetings, and one of them was near the Citadel, which was built by Henri Christophe. And this is the Citadel, as you can see. One of the greatest feats of Haiti. And the reason there was 2 meetings is that after the August 14th meeting, in the area of Lembe, near where, for instance, Bookman had was working and enslaved, there was someone jumped the gun, right? And they started burning down that plantation. They were caught, and when they were caught, they confessed about the August 14th meeting and what was being planned, the coup d'état boule kai. And so there is another meeting that happened where they planned, where they started on the 22nd. So that meeting is always conflated as if, you know, but what I wanted you to understand is that we have been fighting in Haiti, just like I'm fighting right now, and Professor Bello and everyone in here who is Haitian, who understand we are colonized, we are resisting. Well, our ancestors resisted. We have, for instance, the most famous ones, I'm just gonna say, but we were resisting since 1503. We were resisting. We have Anakaona, Queen Anakaona, who was giving a choice between being a sex slave to these Neanderthals or to die, and she chose to die. We have Padre Jean, who in Port-au-Paix, who escaped and intended to destroy the whole system, and he was caught. And then we have the great Macandal and his wife, Grande Brigitte, who were supreme guerrilla warriors. You hear constantly about Macandal, you don't hear about Grande Brigitte, and this is endemic of how women and this patriarchal male cults, Abrahamic religions, sort of societies are always cut out. And so we're going to try not to do that. And so we're going to name Grande Brigitte, who is the wife of Macandal, who was so fierce, she became a Loa, a Gede. She became keeper of our stories. So as we move on, you guys remember right there at BòKayMan, we saw these various, let me see. I wish I could move this from, yeah, so yeah. So this is actually the area of BòKayMan. We talked about this already. You see this so-called, all right, so remember, there was 2 meetings, one on the Mezir plantation and one near where the Citadel would be built, and near where another woman whose name escapes me for the moment, but I'm gonna come to it because she had my colonial name. Oh my goodness, Dede Marguerite. There is history on her, because when I first did my reenactment of BòKayMan, I used a book about her. I always want to make this point, since we just were talking about the Citadel. about the lies that they tell about Haiti, because they want to destroy us, okay? So one of those lies is that we have 2% forest cover. And I want to constantly, because our job at the Free Haiti Movement and at the Haitian Lawyers Leadership Network and at the Èzili Network, is to tell the truth, not the colonial narrative. Haiti's forest cover, for all of you, is 32%, which is the same as the forest cover of the United States, France, and Germany, and greater than Ireland and England. And so what I want, the reason I want to bring this up is, if that's a lie, think about what else is a lie. And so we come to ManboInan. Cécile Fatima, I want to say, was either 16 years old or 20 years old, depending on who you're looking at. So it's, to me, highly unlikely that, and she may not have been born, she wasn't born in Africa. It's highly unlikely that she was that powerful woman. So I wanted to find someone who could give me some idea of this. So essentially, the first time that Cécile Fatima, according to the research I've been able to do, obviously, as I said, you know, it's not exhaustive, and I am subject to being corrected. It wasn't until 1954 that her name came up as the person who led the BòKayMan ceremony. And that was, the evidence was given to a writer by the name of Etienne Charlier, who supposedly got it from her great-grandson, Pierrot Benoit Rameau, okay? And if you look back, you will see that, you know, some people say that she was born in 1775, which would have made her 16 or 20, or 1771. Rodney Solnave says she was born in 1771. But what all seem to agree is that Cécile Fatima was a mulatto, and that she died at the age of 112, okay? But I think that she was much, much too young. But as I said, you know, and the other evidence we have that it may not have been her that was the negress, besides the fact that she hadn't been born in Africa, is that we have La Cousoucrie, where we know that this was a Pétuot. I'm not going to go very far on this, but let's say there are two dominant energies, Rada and Pétuot. The population in Haiti came from all over West Africa and all the way down from Angola and what's Congo today. ManboInan, that has celebrated in Haiti, specifically in Guanaïve and La Cousoucrie and Souvenance, I believe, is Nzinga. I've been writing that for a long time. I just never sort of put it together for you guys. You will find this so Queen Nzinga is ManboInan in Haiti. Queen Nzinga, she fought off the Portuguese. She is a fierce warrior. So her people from the Congo, when they got to Haiti, they continued to fight. She was their inspiration. And I believe she is the inspiration for those women who fought in the Haitian Revolution. And from the Reine Congo, if you go to La Cousoucrie, they call her Reine Congo. I've always sung this song, Wangolo, because she comes from that area. And if you guys see my Carnegie Hall presentation, it's to the Wangolo, okay, which is the Angola people. Okay, so essentially that's saying you have gone. When are you going to come back again? So I think that's the hidden mother warrior story of MamboInan or ManboInan. And so what I did to help me out is I went to people in Lac-Sucré because they have ManboInan. And I asked, many did not know because Lac-Sucré have become a worship for Notre Dame and the Virgin Mary, because Haitian Vodou has been infiltrated. So they don't really understand ManboInan and its connection to the Congo Queen, even though they say, you know, they're representing the Congo Queen. So I'm going to find it for you guys. I hope the next, I hope this is it.
Èzili Dantò, bonjour. Justement, hier soir, moi que vos explications sur ces zinzin Figaro matin.
So the way I find out information is I ask Haitians who are on the ground, who are generation after generation in Lac-Sucré, and I say, listen, is there a connection between ManboInan and ManboInan? Because their names is only a one letter difference. And we know that our, the French is constantly making confusion, okay? So this is for you people. This is Unga. He is responsable of the National Congress of Haitian Vodouisans. I wrote it down. I'm sorry, I don't have it, but yes, he's part of the structure and hierarchy of the Vodouist Congress, and this is the information he gave me. I wonder if David Josur, is David Josur in here? David, if you're here, I'd like you to translate, but if not, I'm just going to play a bit of this and then I will summarize it, okay? But those of you who are Haitian, you can go back and review this. We don't have too much time because I have a couple of more things to cover. So here's what he said to me when I asked him, because it seemed to me, since we already know that they were destroying our history, and since we already know there's colorism in everywhere, we know, let's say in African American history, there was Rosa Parks, but there was a darker woman who didn't meet the societal proprieties of, let's say, the integrated Negroes or the school Negroes. So Rosa Parks became that symbol of resistance. But there were other women, but that they did not look the way that Europeans and certain Black males want them to look. And so I am here to tell those women's stories. Not to say that Cécile Fatima wasn't enslaved. She was, according to history, actually sold by her own father into slavery. And mulattoes have a specific, horrible place in our history as very, very tragic with regards to being used as sexual objects. So it is only the few who transcend, who fight back, and Cécile Fatima is one of those. this is Enoch G. And this is what he said when I asked him to let me know. Because Guanaive is like south of Montrouge. And it just seemed interesting to me that every time I talk to people at BòKayMan, they never said Cécile Fatima. They always said ManboInan. They never said her name. As you notice, if you go back to that last piece with, so I went and I asked, and here we go. I will try to summarize.
Comme nous t'ai planifié déjà, je voulais faire un petit parler avec vous un peu de ManboInan. ManboInan dans le vaudou haïtien, par des formations, je dis Iman, mais ce n'est pas Inan, c'est Inan. ManboInan. Il était habité, d'après la tradition ancestrale, ManboInan était habité Montrouge. Montrouge sont localités dans l'entrée ville locale. Il était habité Montrouge, dans une forêt. Vous connaissez l'esclavage pour commencer à gagner l'indépendance, il était pratiqué le marronnage tout d'abord. Tout ça a fait, il fait lit pendant la nuit et dans la forêt. ManboInan, il y a un badjili, Montrouge. L'esclavage a une habitude à aller Montrouge, à faire magie. Chaque fois qu'il a besoin de faire magie, il y a les KayiManboInan parce que Manzette est très fort dans la magie. Il y a les KayiManboInan, Montrouge, il y a le fait magie. Ils ont entendu entre eux-mêmes pour faire une grosse rencontre pour faire soulèvement dans ce domaine. Ils ont entendu pour faire une grosse rencontre. Et rencontre ça, ils ont décidé de faire. KayiManbo ça, ils ont habitué à fréquenter, qui c'est Inan, qui était dans la forêt Montrouge. Comme ça, dans la nuit du 14, 13 au 14, donc, ils ont fait rencontre ça. Faire rencontre ça, qui est les cérémonies BòKayMan, qui est une rencontre qui gagne plusieurs portées là-dedans. Ils ont un porté mystique, ils ont un porté historique, et ils ont un porté économique et politique. Parce que c'était.
Okay. So just to summarize what he just said for my English speakers, he essentially said that ManboInan at BòKayMan of August 14 frame is the same ManboInan that's venerated and celebrated at Lakou Soukri, and she is so that's what he just said. And I think I'm going to find a place in that, because it's a place there where he talks about how today the Lakou Soukri has totally forgotten about the warriorship of ManboInan, and they celebrate, because one of the things that interested me was that when I was in the last 16 years doing August 14th, there was always like August 14th, 15th, 16th at Lakou Soukri, and they seem to be in the same dates. So that that was another evidence of why I wanted to figure this out. And we now have more than one person, as you know, that is kind of connecting the two. Except remember, right? If you go to Lakou Soukri, the only thing they really know about ManboInan is the Virgin Mary, and that's what they celebrate. And the warriorship of Queen Nzinga is essentially gone. I actually spoke to a Haitian Ungan yesterday who told me that essentially it was the Virgin Mary they were celebrating, and the nativity and such. So you see, we have a lot of work to do in Bojun. And hopefully some of the work that I'm doing here will begin Haitians' interest and reclaiming themselves and reclaiming our work. I'm gonna try to find, let's see, that means I'm going to stop sharing. Hello, everybody. I'm going to stop sharing and find another section of what he was saying. Let me see if I can find it. After he...
Èzili Dantò, bonjour. Les mon rouge, al fait magie. Yo te entendre entre eux-mêmes pour yo faire ça, yo te décidé faire. Kayiman ça, yo te habitué fréquenter, qui c'est Inan, qui yo fait rencontre ça. Yo fait rencontre ça, qui est les cérémonies BòKayMan, qui est une rencontre qui gagne plusieurs portées là-dedans. Cérémonie a été tenue et que nous arrivons à faire la grande révolution saint-domingoise. Mais il y a les syncrétismes qui traversaient vos doigts haïtiens. Normalement, la fête de BòKayManboInan, c'est 13, 14, 15 août que le doyer. 13, 14 août, normalement, que le doyer. Mais au lieu que vous parlez de BòKayManboInan, vous parlez de nativité, vous parlez de Marie, Notre-Dame, qui commençait de 15 août à 8 septembre, alors que espace où nous devons vénérer Inan, ils sont Manbo, qui lui-même te baille toute ville, te baille toute forcerie pour réussir la guerre indépendance. Donc, vous vénérez lui comme sous-cri, c'est là au Congo, côté que il prend garde là, ça veut dire tout 100 fois pour monsieur attaquer et colon. Donc c'est Congo, c'est division Congo qui baille ça, et c'est Inan qui était Manbo monsieur. Donc dans la cour Congo, qui c'est la cour garde là, vous vénérez Inan. Donc c'est même BòKayManboInan ça, qui était mon original, c'est lui même que vous vénérez dans la cour Soukri d'Anache, autrefois qui tirait les savanes moutons. D'accord.
All right. So to summarize the second part of what he just said, he essentially said that they have sort of forgotten what the historical BòKayManboInan stood for, the connection to the Congo and Queen Nzinga. And today, if you go to La Soukri, you will find that they are celebrating the nativity. And he goes on to mention that this is shameful since she has such an important part in our history. Now, now that we've made that point, I'm gonna move on to the next point. We've already done the 2 meetings. That was the name of the person I spoke to. For those who want to know, his name is Enoch Genelus, Confédération Nationale Vaudouisant Haïtien. Okay, so learning our history is a progress. I want to stop sharing the screen and move on to, we have a few more minutes before our featured guest begins. I want to say a couple of things about where we are. And I want to say something that we're always pushing at the Free Haiti movement. What was the most important, some of the most important things, that template that our ancestors left for us was the BòKayMan call. And as you all know, I actually talk about this BòKayMan. It was also in the King Congo language, right? These are all of the evidences which points to Queen Nzinga and the Patois rights, as opposed to what's written in our books. So it was in the King Congo language. And if you remember nothing about what I teach about in these teach-ins, you must remember the BòKayMan call. It was, it is what began the Haitian Revolution, and it is the template we teach of how to beat white supremacy. So besides all the various things we talk about, which is Bookman's prayer and how the white man's God wants crimes, but our God, the one that inside of us want to do good. I mean, these are basic Haitian epistemology. Throw away the image of the white man's God, basic Haitian epistemology, but you could still walk around with a lot of Haitians with their names. The colonial names, our streets, the colonial names all over. And so we have a lot of work to do. As I look for this, the BòKayMan call is 8A. Now, obviously my accent is going to be different. I'm going to show you a Haitian echo that I just heard recently of that 8A Mabumba, Kunga Mandele, Kunga Bafioti, Kunga Najoki, Kunga Yo. And that means we must, this is the cry at BòKayMan, we must stop the colonists, the stranger. Mandele, literally in the Kinkongo language means, it means a stranger, right? Not family. We must stop the Black collaborators. We must stop all their evil forces. And so that, and I always, in terms of my American audience, to understand the evil forces, you might want to think about Neely Fuller's 9 areas of human activity. And for me, I add as a human rights lawyer that not only there are law, economics, labor, entertainment, sex, war, not only that, I add the human rights organization. Of course, you know, their media, you already know, part of Neely Fuller's presentation. So these are what, when the warriors at BòKayMan talked about Najoki, this is what they're talking about. What one of my favorite historians, Dr. Henry Cox, says, he says that there is nothing that comes out of the European mind that is not about domination. And we must remember this. And that's why Najoki is their evil forces. For me, as a human rights lawyer, I know the lies of the human rights organizations. I know the lies of the charitable organizations. I know of weaponized charity. And so from their Hollywood movies to their education, these are the things that at BòKayMan, in 3 very quick sentences, the Haitians left to us as a template that we must stop, kill, somehow bind the Black collaborators, that we must stop all his Najoki, and that we must stop the white colonists. And today, we don't do that. We think we can actually have the same space as them. All right, so let's see if I can get on this screen the BòKayMan call, because for me, that's just a wrap. That's it. So if you want to know, besides the thing about, you know, the Haitian Revolution always says to burn the port cities. These are our epistemology, which for me also means to go inside. When you are being raped and destroyed, and call all kinds of names and all these lies about you, what you can do is go inside, burnt the port cities. And that's what they did. They actually burnt the port cities. And okay, I have no idea why. Okay, they burnt the port cities. Another thing we teach about BòKayMan and the lessons of BòKayMan is this, it's the only union in Haitian history that has never, ever wavered. The union of the amalgamated African tribes who came together at BòKayMan has never wavered. You don't see any Haitian saying, I am Fon, I am Akan. They became one. And so very recently, I heard the BòKayMan call echoed on the streets of Haiti. Have a listen. Oops. Okay. Yeah, move these people. This. Okay. Have a listen.
Hey, hey, boomba, hey, 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 boomba, hey. Kanga bafiote, kanga muchelele, kanga dokila, kanga eh. Viva TV ça ne veut dire là. C'est un chanteuse ancêtre yo te kon chanter. Si n pa touye yo, yap touye nous. Système ça yo mette là, sous système yo là qui là pour détruire nous, qui pour pas ba nous l'éducation, pour pas ba nous travail, pour pas ba nous logement, pour ka faire nous quoi que nous pas moun. Si n pa touye yo, yap touye nous. Nèg ghetto yo qui gen sam nan mais entendez parole ça. Si n pa touye yo, yap touye nous. Là yo fin ba nous zam nan, yo ba nous kob, koun fin rempli mission yo, yap marché touye nous.
Okay, so he essentially said, if we, this means if we don't kill them, they will kill us. This is a system meant to make us look like we are not humans. They don't give us an education. They give us arms to kill each other. Ghetto men, turn those guns back to those who gave them to you, not each other. So it was very interesting to me, because in all the years I've been doing the BòKayMan call, I only used to put this one out. Okay, this is from a group, Sac Passé, the Welfare Poets in New York, and here it is. Oh no.
Bomba, Kango, Bafiote, Kanga, Mundele, Kanga, Doki, La, Kanga, Lisa, Pasena, Muleni, Bete, Bomba, Kango, Bafiote, Kanga, Mundele, Kanga, Doki, La, Kanga, Lisa, Pasena, Muleni, Bete, Haiti.
Okay, so that was the one time I heard. Listen to it again. It's, remember, Kanga Mandele, Kanga Bafiote, Kanga Najoke, Kanga Yo. Everyone says it in a different way.
Bomba, Kango, Bafiote, Kanga, Mundele, Kanga, Doki, La, Kanga, Lisa, Pasena, Muleni, Bete, Bomba, Kango, Bafiote, Kanga, Mundele, Kanga.
Okay. So essentially, you've got the BòKayMan call. All right. So when they tell you to pick between one or lesser evil, remember, they actually gave those choices at BòKayMan. There were they said, you can have Sunday off or die. And our ancestors did not go within those parameters. They said, we'll choose outside of those parameters. So today, when the duopoly is giving you lesser evil and greater evil, it really is time for you all to remember, at BòKayMan, we did not enter into their logic. We did not deal with evil. We said, no, liberty or death. And essentially, right before the revolution started, it was death for the men who had started on August 17th by mistake or misunderstanding. They got tortured horribly and killed. So those who were left behind knew it was going to be liberty or death. We have to get that urgency back. Another lesson of the Haitian Revolution that Jean-Jacques Dessalines and the women warriors, we did not want to live in a world like this. You see, I put this picture here because it's a world of bourgeois democracy. And as you all know, I always say it, it's when and where ultimate wealth, ultimate luxury, ultimate beauty, ultimate personal freedom lives in the same space as deprivation, poverty, rape, sexual slavery, human trafficking, organ trafficking. And that's the world we're living in. And that's not the world we Haitians fought when on August 22nd, they set fire to all the plantations, as you see here. And they got rid of their enslavers. We are coming to the end, my people. I want to start introducing to you. Let me see the time. Mike, how are we doing?
It is 5 after 1 o'clock.
Okay. So it is time, ladies and gentlemen, for me to introduce to you our featured guests. As you know, this is how it's going to work. We are going to have Professor Small introduce our wonderful, great Bayyinah Bello, and then she will make a presentation. Professor Small will intervene as he wishes, and then you all get a chance to ask questions. That's our template. So let's see. Before I introduce Professor Smalls, doing these presentations, I have had many folks write to me, and I get 600 emails a day. It's very, very hard for me to write to everybody, but our template for the last 16 years has always remained the same. This is what we say to white folks who are interested in being in solidarity with Free Haiti and the warriors who resist this current profit over people system. I don't know if you say it, but this is what I always say. If you've come to help me, you're wasting your time. If you've come because your liberation is bound up with mine, then let's work together. And of course, with regards to what I just told you about our history, it is meaningless unless you convert it into an instrument of liberation. So forget all the nuances about all the confusion. The only thing you should take out of history is what you need in order to empower yourself for today. Ladies and gentlemen, Professor Smalls has been on the front lines of Black resistance, global diaspora, Pan-Africanism for his entire life. He is one of the few males that I know that supports the Èzili network without any conditions and with love. He will tell you a bit about his own story. I don't want to take more time, but he goes back to the era of Malcolm X. As I said in last year's presentation, you guys can find it on YouTube. We were at the museum, Charles Wright Museum together. He is a living library of our history. And his spirit is the purest I've ever seen. So without further ado, may we all welcome Professor James Smalls, who will give us a few remarks and introduce Professor Bayyinah Bello.
Peace and blessings to everyone. And Èzili, you know, I'm honored. I'm so honored to be with my brothers and sisters who are here today. But to know about me, that's not necessary. I want to introduce my little sister, who's been my comrade for decades. She brought me to Haiti on my first trip. She brought me to Haiti on my second trip. She taught me, even though I'd studied voodoo many, many years before to some degree, under my teacher, Rulex Merlin. When I met Bayyinah, I met someone who could teach the African American about Haiti. because she had lived among us. She too was a contemporary and a comrade of Malcolm X. I know she doesn't like to talk about it, but this is a woman who was a soldier with Malcolm X. She studied and traveled across Africa. She taught in East Africa. She taught in West Africa. And she had the option to come back here to America and take a big professor's position if she wished. She went back home to her Haiti. And she engaged in the day-to-day struggle to tell the story of our great African people who occupy the land Haiti, but to also help in the resistance. So let me introduce my little sister, Bayyinah Bello, with love from the ancestors and the divine hovering over you.
Thank you, brother. Thank you, beaucoup. Thank you very much. Two languages coming out at the same time. Thank you very much, big brother. Greetings to all. Jambo, Hotep, Alafia. It's a pleasure and an honor to be among you today. It's a tremendous pleasure on this August 22nd, day that we give out the signal to stop tolerating the intolerable, to stop tolerating the inhumane, to stop tolerating non-human behavior from people who claim to know God, from people who claim to be humans. Because we have to look at this properly. We have a narrative that makes us think, I'm a good Christian, I have 100 slaves. It doesn't work together. It's impossible to be a human. I'm not even, never mind Christian. To be a human being and to think it normal to tie people up in chains, cut people any way you like, take pregnant women, gather people around them to bet as you slit the woman's belly and have a race who will die first, the baby or the mother. That is inhumane behavior. When you bestialize others, that means the beast is in you. You and the beast are one. You cannot belong to any kind of religion or any kind of spiritual system. That is for certain. That is proof that you don't belong anywhere. So, what happened on August 13? No, August 13. The gathering was on August 13 in the night. People argue over Manbo Inan, Manbo Imam, Manbo Marie-Louise, Marie-Louise Bomba, Cécile Fatima. In my book, it's unnecessary. One person could never have pulled it off. It is a structure that they put together. And each person had its role. So, as far as my research could tell, Cécile Fatima was a major player in the organization of the Congress that took place on August 13. She planned to have 18 different spots that we would meet the same night. When the moon was in a particular position, we would gather inside a forest, in the heart of the forest. As you know, when you see forest, the heart of it has no trees. All around the trees are. So they planned this so they would have, in my understanding, I have seen nothing that says that they did it for this reason, but my logic tells me they planned it in the heart of forest because they would be protected from being seen or being heard. So every meeting place was in the heart of different forests, and it covered the entire island from Punta Cana, in what is today Dominican Republic, to Leziwa, what is the tip west of Haiti. 18 different spots were planned for the same night, with no telephone, no typewriter, no internet, no Zoom. But yet, organization, discipline, planning, great knowledge of the territory, understanding, higher understanding of human behavior. So they organized this. 6 of them did not take place because even before August 13, people spoke and those were crushed. But 12 of them took place. 3 in the part that we call today the Dominican Republic, 9 in the part that we call today the Haitian Republic. So throughout the island, on August 13, meetings were held by our enslaved people to answer one single question. The meeting could not last an hour because by the time the moon reaches this particular peak, that's the end of the meeting. Everybody go back. Hope they didn't see you were out. Because if they did see it, you know what will happen. So we meet to answer one question. What are we going to do so our children, our children's children will not suffer the misery that we are suffering today? That's the question. Not 2, not 3. Anyone who wants to say something else, yeah, but my master is not so bad, you're out. Your talking time is over. Answer the question, what can we do so our children and our children's children do not suffer what is going on right now? And everywhere they had the same question, but of course there are things that were different. There were some places at the end of the meeting, everybody everywhere agreed that the only way is to fight. There is nothing that this beast will understand but force. That was clear to everyone. So now we go. We finished the meeting. In some areas, rain started pouring. So someone would stop, one of the organizers would stop people who wanted to just jump out and say, no, this is a blessing. The rain pouring is saying that our ancestors, our divine, does approve the work we've done here, so we must go, we must take the rain, not hide from that blessing. In certain places, a chicken was offered, a pigeon was offered in sacrifice. In other places, a pig was offered in sacrifice. In one place, in the area of Saint-Marc, Jean-Baptiste Vic Samar said, we are going to create a nation. We cannot offer an animal blood. We must do better. And before anyone understood what he was about to say, he took his knife and hurt himself in both ankles, both wrists, and the neck. He said, take my blood. So Jean-Baptiste Vic Samar sacrificed himself so we would become free. In other areas, there were many different, as we said, there's 12 areas. So each place, and some of them we have as to what they did. We want to give you a resume. Of course, we don't have time for all of it. So the thing is, as they separate, they say, okay, you go back, sneak back to where you came out of. Hopefully they will not find you. And we're gonna put out the word to see what all the others agreed to, and we will let you know what date. The date was also given by weather. When you see such and such and such happening in the sky, that means the date is coming. Whatever date, if they, they're not gonna say Tuesday, today's what, Saturday? Saturday, August 22nd, 2:20 at 3:15. You couldn't send a message like that. It could fall anywhere. So you have to have codes. also the whole organization is structured with codes, code names. That's another reason I do not argue Imam, Inan. I don't do these this debates, because if I was going to go, what I came to understand, if I had to go to this meeting, I would not go as Bayyinah Bello. I would have a name that if anything happened, no one would know where I came from. You would find there are many people who have the same name. I'm sure there were more than one Mary there, more than one Inan there, more than one Iman there. So it's, to me, these are useless debates. If we understand it is a structure, it is organized, and there are many people involved, each playing their role. What I understand about Cecile Fatima, she is a fabulous organizer, and she planned and plotted the Congress. The where, the what we would discuss, and how long we would discuss it was her work with her team. Of course, nothing was done single person. These are people who live knowing that the next minute they may not be alive. So nobody was going to want to do, this is my thing, I'm the head of, no, that's out. In fact, when you're it, you want to be unseen. When they talk about something, you're the big dummy on the subject. You're not about going on TV and saying, yeah, I'm the, no. So codes, code names, numbers, many people took names of animals. For example, colibri was a very common name that came into that. So we needed to protect ourselves while we do the work. So we couldn't put ourselves forward. I found nothing about Bookman apart from knowing that he worked at the plantation as a driver, coach driver. I have not found him involved. I've not seen anything. I don't say that he doesn't do. Watch out, because everyone is undercover. I'm not saying that so-and-so didn't do or so-and-so did. I'm saying I didn't find anything specific that showed me his participation until that night. When there was hesitation in the meeting that he was in, he rose up to say, God, who created everything you see, is your father, and he demands that you do the work. So his speech, from that speech, he became somebody everybody was looking up to. But prior to that, I have not seen anything. We saw things about other people. Lots of females were involved for a very good reason. With the Euro-Christian mentality, women are visible at 18, 16, let's say from 16 to 30s or 40, everybody sees you. Either the man who wants to talk to you or the criminal who wants to rape you, but you are noticeable. No matter what you're wearing, they'll see you. But after 40, after 50, and we found out that some of the women would take a stone and break their front teeth. So they would become even more invisible. So you become invisible, they don't see you. Whereas if a Black man is 150, he has both legs cut, he is not trusted. He's being watched. So that's one of the reasons that more and more women get involved in the revolution. I don't think there was a decision not to have men, but there were a great deal of women involved. We see that, for example, Marie-Claire Worse, when she organized to go help, she chose to have only women come with her. Less threat, less risk, and more easily you pass by and nobody notices you when you're a certain age. Younger, it's less, you don't have that invisibility. So you would be less likely to be chosen to do certain mission. So one place, we go through the 12 meetings that were held. Then we had a whole system to share what was the decision immediately, as quickly as possible. I am sure many of the horse riders, messengers, coach drivers were involved in carrying messages from one place to the next, which help us to know right away. Everybody says there's only one way, got to fight. And then the date was chosen. When some people were saying, we have no weapons, but these people have boats, they have guns, they have cannons, how can we fight against them? The answer was, every human, every creation has a way to defend himself or herself. God has never created a being that didn't have, without giving him a way to defend yourself. Every tool is a weapon. I write with this until I'm attacked. If I'm attacked, I fight with it. The chair I sit on is a tool until I'm attacked. When I'm attacked, that's a weapon, etc., etc., etc. So these were the type of things that they said to each other. Another very interesting element that I found this both in the North, in the Artibonite, in the South, people say to each other, if you're a fighter, you must be unnoticeable. If you hope to be in the next fight, you must be unnoticeable today. Because as soon as the enemy's eyes is on you, the risks are tremendous. So our people were very talented in passing as maybe the house nigger or the person who's, oh, yes, massa, yes, massa, yes, massa, while you're planning and plotting. And that's one thing, it's important not to be judging each other, because you don't know who has a particular face, but is hiding in his heart. It's true, his or her real face. So all this to say what? We would conclude by saying, yes, Cecile Fatima and her team were great organizers, but there were many important Mambos. Dede Magritte is an important Mambo. In each one of the different spots where we met, there had to be someone who was highly spiritual and knew how to carry on what had to be done in order to A, strengthen those who came to the meeting, because the first thing, the most likely thing is that when you go back and they say, where were you? And you start, I was at the meeting, there was Bayyinah, Èzili, James Small, all of them were there and they forced me to come. So they had to give you the proper training and the proper elements to make sure that you would have the strength. Where were you? Right there. Where we look with it, well, it's just, you have to. Number one. Number two, to hold your tongue. And number three, to have the strength that when the date is announced, you will be there to answer. With whatever you have. You in the field cutting canes, then you have a machete. The other one who doesn't have a machete has the cane stick or the cane leaves. Whatever you have is your weapon. And that's how we get started. And another important thing they said to each other, after the battle, after we finish killing all of them, we will get dressed. We will take the boots and the uniforms and whatever they were wearing. Dad, they don't need it no more. So we would go out even naked to the fight, knowing that victory is ours. And when we come back, we'll be all dressed up. So women's role was not a decision to put others out, but it was the most practical, competent thing to do to be successful. It is by analyzing the society in which we live, they were living, that we were living then. That's when we understood what was the best way to fight. Many women who were that slavers were accustomed to coming to their bed or to wherever they sleep that night and come on top of their bellies. Well, many came as usual. Some of the women, they didn't go to do this and that. They stayed right there. And when he came, they had a nice little surprise for him. He came and that was his last time coming. So we fought in many, many, many different ways. The thing is, once you have the mental structure of freedom, then you know that you have to fight. Grandmas have to fight. Great-grandmas have to fight. Grandchildren have to fight. When you're in that kind of fight, there is no too young. There is no too old. There is no male role or female role. Whoever is the most muscular will do those things that muscles are required for. But we have to be logical. We have to have self-control. We have to have discipline. That's what my research, that's what it taught me. BòKayMan was the time, what is called BòKayMan, is the time where we really put all of our discipline, of our trust in self, confidence, self-confidence, self-esteem, to make a fabulous plan, not copying so-and-so's program, not taking this so-and-so's template. No, we created what was perfect for that moment and created it with in a total I presence. That means I am the sun, I am the rain, I am the moon, I am the sky, I'm the soil, I am the light. Therefore, when I make a plan, I know what the sun is going to be doing, what this is going to be doing, what that is going to be, what's that doing, and then I make a plan in total synchronicity. That's what brought success. It is this high level of discipline. Yes, the women had a major role, no doubt about it, because it was the only sure way to succeed was for us to be doing a lot of things. Not just women, women of a certain age was vital. The age where you don't attract too many eyes. That was important. So thank you. That would be what I would share with you today, and I will be very happy to answer your questions if there are any.
Thank you, Bayyinah. Much appreciated. Everybody, this is one of Haiti's treasures, Bayyinah Bello. Professor Bello also runs the Marie-Claire Heureuse Félicité Bonheur Foundation. You can find her everywhere.
Marie-Claire Heureuse Félicité Bonheur Dessalines.
Marie-Claire Heureuse Félicité Bonheur Dessalines Foundation, also known as Foundation Félicité. She established that in 1999 to undertake humanitarian, social, and educational works in Haiti. And I know that every year, in honor of the Empress Dessalines' wife, who I always say to people, sort of started the first Red Cross in the world. It was an amazing character. Her character is so amazing to me because I have the patron energy. But she was able to live with the patron energy and still essentially not deal with guns, which I think is something that is a wonderful, amazing paradox and story. And the complexion of that, the complexity of that is important in the world that we see today, where men and women don't seem to be able to get along because of their differences. Now, here is an ultimate difference, a man whose life depended on his gun, and a woman who was about healing, and she healed the enemy and the warriors of Haiti. I find Marie-Claire was very, very, very interesting. Thank you, Bayyinah, merci beaucoup, pour tout ce travail vous fait. I pour libation on this important day to all the Bayyinah Bellos, and I know there's only one out here
I hope not. I certainly hope not. That I hope there are many.
To all the Bayyinah Bellos, let me say that again, who are doing this work, bringing us the information and providing spiritual and academic and scholarly face of who and what we are. We are telling our own story, and that's what makes this generation so important. But I want to come to, before we go to questions, because we have some time here, I want to talk about current Haiti. Because as I always say, history is meaningless to me and Free Haiti unless we use it as a tool and instrument of our current liberation, whether it's personal, societal, or global. I think that where are we today? And as a lawyer, a human rights lawyer, I have to tell you, Haiti is under occupation by the same very people we fought in 229 years ago, right? We fought the Spanish, the French, the English, and a US embargo. Today, the United States, which became a superpower because of the triumph of the Haitian Revolution, they were able to double their size. Today is destroying us. And they are constantly trying to destroy it. I mean, it is an impossible task. My father, who is Neg Guinée, always said Guinée posé, which means we've already won this fight. But as we are carnal, as we are flesh, we must every day continue to move forward with that. So where are we today? Today, I must let you know that the culture that I represent, the culture of Èzili Dantò, the archetype of the warrior mother, of love, of femininity, of all of that is just, the Mahat, is under occupation and is colonized. And the colonization is different than a colonization. It's neo-colonialism. We are colonized by the Black collaborator acting on behalf of white supremacy. One of the important things to understand, and I actually asked many Vodouists before I came on this final webinar, how did they feel about the fact that today, the dictatorship that's in Haiti through fake elections has made Vodou illegal. And it was very interesting because Vodou had been made illegal for about 150 years, up until like 86, and when Aristide came and he added it to freedom of worship. So as a lawyer, I asked many Vodouists, what did they think? And the consensus was, that is the state's problem. That has nothing to do with how we live our lives. And I thought that was essentially very interesting. As a lawyer, maybe as a modern European educated woman in a lot of ways, I find it heinous that we are living in a space where our very culture is made illegal. And yet, you have the current collaborator taking his power from the spirits of Haiti. I think that I challenge Vodouists, those of us who see spirit, who work with spirit, who understand spirit. Like, it is time for us to step up and say no. Because as a lawyer, I am dealing with our destruction every day. And I'm talking about the destruction of the least amongst us. And I want to show you, before we go to questions and bring back Professor Smalls and Professor Bayyinah Bello, I want to show you this way that's happening to our people, the Holocaust that is going on, only because, like I said, history means nothing unless we use it to inspire us to something else. So I have a piece here where, okay, here we go. The Mahafa continues for Haïtien. And after the earthquake, Barack Obama essentially gave temporary protected status only to the Haitians who were living in America. Everybody missed the fact that those who were in Haiti with the greatest, most devastating apocalyptic event that happened, they were not allowed to seek asylum anywhere, even though seek asylum in the United States. So many of them traveled the 7,000 trek. They traveled down to Brazil, Chile, and when those faces didn't need the labor of the Haitian anymore, they essentially threw them out. And so I want to remember today the plight of my people, the plight of the Haitians who are walking 11 nations. Like if you see this, they're going from Brazil to Peru to Ecuador to Colombia to Panama, Costa Rica, Nicaragua, Honduras, Guatemala, Mexico. This is the plight of Haitians who can't find asylum justice anywhere in the world. And we have to pay attention to their lives. Recently, 7,000, I mean, if you guys want to know, Red, Black, and Moonlight was my performance piece. If you go to 1997, I have a piece called Capsize. I'm on an overloaded boat and we just capsized. We are capsizing even today. So what is it that we need to do to stop this? It took 300 years before. Here I just took this out of the headlines. 44 Haitian immigrants apprehended trying to leave Haiti. Here you have the most, this just happened last year. There were 40,000 Haitians in Abaco. Nobody blinked, it seems to me, when they were just devastated and destroyed and nobody knows where they are. The human trafficking, organ trafficking, sex trafficking, it gets its space from my people's flesh. And I want us to know this is what's going on. This was a headline in 2019. It says Haitians devastated by Dorian, living at Sandbank, Marsh Harbor, and Abaco, Bahamas. The place was destroyed, and some say it was a weather engineered to get because they have no defense. Because this Michelle Sisson, the U.S. ambassador to Haiti, this white woman, is maintaining our devastation. Whereas in the United States, they want to tell us to come and join their feminist movements. This was Abaco. These are houses of Haïtiens. Is this what Dessalines, Grand Guiton, Grand Toya, is this what they fought for? We have them walking from Brazil, from Chile, through these marshes with their babies, Panama. And this was, like I said, a week ago or so, this one, and Panama proposes flying Haitian migrants back home. Home to what? To the fire that's been set to our country by the United States. I'm gonna stop right here. I love my girl here. She has this song. I said to myself, if I could get through this, I'm gonna put a little bit of yeah, freedom. We need freedom. And we need freedom now. All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is time for your questions. We get them together. everywhere in this world.
Trying to rain on the thunder. Tell a story I'm new. I'm a walk, I'm a march on the regular. Painted white, flags blue. Nothing me up in my running blind and true. I'm a rain on this hill. Tell the sweet I'm new.
Oh yeah.
Ooh, I'm telling you.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is your time now. It is. You have, oh goodness, we have some time. Wonderful. Professor Smalls.
Yes, sister.
Give us some of your wise guidance here. I just showed you the plight of Haitian today. We already talked about what happened 229 years ago. Where do we go from here?
Back. We go back to come forward. So we go back. And in what way? We, as Bayyinah ended and you began to talk, you were talking in the right space. Voodoo is not a religion. It is our way. It is how we understand the universe. It is how we know ourselves in the universe. It is that we put in our hands when we defeated the French, the Spanish, and the English. We've dropped that. And we've allowed them to redesign our own voodoo and give it back to us and tell us how we should behave with our very soul. We must return to the way of the ancestors. There is no other way. Matter of fact, the ancestors will not allow us freedom until we return to be them. We are them going forward. We know that scientifically. But it is their way that they want to run this planet. They're not going to let us be free to be good Europeans or charitable or benevolent Europeans. We will have to really work hard now, as you did when you were starting this afternoon. Explain the essence of voodoo in a contemporary manner without losing its ancient essence, so that the young people who I get calls from all the time can stop running away. Stop trying to rationalize why I can't leave Islam, why I can't leave Christianity. You can't, because they have you all tied up. This thing, our thing, you know, the Italians call their way of life their thing. This thing of ours, this voodoo of ours, it is the only way forward. Because it forms the consciousness that informs the mind to take the behavior that brings about freedom. If your mind is informed by your enemy's consciousness, it is constructed never to allow you to be free.
Exact.
You know? So it's voodoo. That is our savior. And we have to stop playing with it. We have to become the Loas. We have to become voodoo. We have to think it, sleep it, dream it, talk it, act it. Then we will see our enemies, and then we will know ourselves. And that's our duty and what we should do next. That's what made Desalina and them so different. That's what made Iman different. They returned to themselves. Who was I before I met this beast? If I'm to be restored to my freedom, I must be restored to the authenticity I was in the universe before this infringement by something that is a mutated deformation in my space. and only voodoo, whether we call it Yoruba or by one Congo system, we know what we're talking about. The laws of nature, the laws of cosmology, the laws of human anatomy in relationship to cosmology and ecology. What is our harmony and our balance? What makes us the universe again? We are really not just defending Haiti or defending Africa. We are responsible for the universe itself.
Exactly.
And that's what voodoo is all about. The sacred science of understanding the universe, the ecology, and the cosmology that we emanated out of and will return to at some stage. Do we want to become that again? Because only there will we be free. Only there will we be free.
Exactly, exactly. Professor Bayyinah Bello says identity, being tied to identity. Professor Bayyinah Bello, could you quote that?
Is being shackled to identity.
Yes, I like that one.
Purpose.
Could you say it again? I want that word.
Is being shackled to identity, purpose, direction, and the eternal pursuit.
That's right. That's right.
So the minute you stop and say, well, you know, I have arrived, then tyranny is going to take a hold of you. You will lose it. Whatever it is you think you have gained will disappear. Okay? And in order to have the life that we are destined to, it cannot happen without discipline, organization. That's what, you see, we say that our street is the light from the past, which shines on the present to help you understand where you are and why you are where you are in the state that you're in. That's what our street does to you. It is just a light. So that's why we can't, you know, this whole thing of, no, she was wearing a blue scarf, no, it was a green scarf. We don't really care. You know, I could have worn a blue scarf that looked green on your screen. So we can't argue about these details. What is essential, that's what matters. That they organize, we're talking about what is called BòKayMan. That those who organized it called the Congress in the Forest, Congress in the Woods, right? Now, what they did, what did they do that made it possible for them to, in less than 1 hour, I might not have mentioned that Cecile Fatima and her team took more than 4 years of planning a less than 1 hour meeting. 4 years, at least 4 years of planning, a less than 1 hour meeting. So the discipline, the organization, look, why August 13, full moon? So nobody would have to carry out a light or anything that could make people, attract people, see that you're going somewhere. They take everything into consideration, not just nature on the ground, on the land, but where is the moon's going to be? We're going to start when the moon is in that position. We're going to go when the moon reaches this position. So everything is in motion and we are in synchronicity with the motion of everything else. So we are totally the universe. We are it. All of it is us. But today, with the mindset of the Euro-Christian evil stuff in us, on top of eating evil food and everything else, but like me with ice cream, I haven't gotten rid of that yet, but yes, we need to work on being more disciplined and being more aligned with all of ourselves, okay? We did not see astronomy as a particular discipline that some people study. We did not see medicine or mathematics or anything as something apart from. No, all of it is here. I am mathematics, I am astronomy, I am whatever. That's why our people we were raised prior to meeting with certain things. We were raised speaking 10, 15, 20 languages. Every child could talk about raise that head up, look upstairs, look up in the heaven and say, oh, this is such and such constellation. Oh, since this constellation is coming, is here with this over here, that means we're gonna have flooding. That means we're gonna have dryness. That means everybody was common knowledge. Knowledge was not separated into bits and pieces. So we have to go back to the discipline that will bring us into a total life. Let me take this opportunity to say this in this particular moment that we're living. Breathing, we take it for granted. Breathing is a learned thing. The body needs a certain amount of oxygen every minute in order to do what it has to do. The body tells us about sharing. We're not talking about charity, we're talking about sharing. Sharing is a natural way. I take and I give as much as I took, but I don't give the same thing. I take oxygen and I give carbon dioxide. Is it a waste? Is it garbage? No. The tree, the plants are happy. Oh yeah, she's sending the carbon dioxide I need. The tree takes the carbon dioxide, takes it in, transform it into oxygen, and give me back oxygen. I take the oxygen, transform it into carbon dioxide. So we each serve each other. Every living thing is bound to the sharing program. So when you have something called capitalism that says, I can have 99.9% of everything, what's left, you will, whoever can get, will get. That's anti-nature and anti-God. So we have to learn how to recognize those principles and put the discipline in our life. We cannot follow these type of behaviors. We have to understand that sharing is vital to life, and everything we do, we must have the principles of life, respect the principles of life. That's what, in fact, discipline is all about, respecting the principles of life.
Thank you. And speaking about discipline, and I want everyone to please hear what Professor Bayyinah Bello just said, because the folks at BòKayMan and who did the Haitian Revolution, they had discipline. You see, I'm going to read at some point before, as we get questions, part of the BòKayMan pieces that I've done with the Red, Black, and Moonlight series. But I was very interested when I saw this video just recently celebrating BòKayMan, and I want to show you, because you get this image that Haitians don't know what they're doing with Vodun, that it's some sort of mysterious superstition. You see, it has been lost on us. But they used every skill that they had for this revolution. Like Professor Bayyinah Bello just said, it so they give you a machete to give them, I think it was like 60% of the sugar in coffee in the world came out of Haiti for France, you know, essentially the work of the captives in Haiti made France the biggest power of that time and gave it more money than all 13 American colonies gave to England. But you give a Haitian of those times a machete, and you just saw what they did with that. It became an art form, and it also became how they won that revolution, because it was a synchronized attack. And it wasn't just women, men, even children. Today, what are we learning with what's in our hands? I intend definitely to use what's in my hand right here to do the revolution. What are you doing? You see, they had nothing, but they had that machete. And look at that artwork that you just saw. This was a celebration of BòKayMan, and you saw the women, you saw the men, but today we're told that Haiti is just a bunch of refugees. You don't know about our rhythms that connect to the biosphere. You don't know about the Yanvalu, which is really about breathing and moving the energy up from the first chakra all the way up to your head. You don't know any of that because our culture is defiled by white supremacy. And so this is what we have to stop. Mike, do you have a first question for Professor Bayyinah Bello or Professor Smalls?
So far, we don't have any questions in the chat. However, Rose has her hand raised. So Rose, go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question to either Sister Bayyinah, Professor Small, or Èzili Dantò.
Greetings, Professor Bello, Professor Smalls, Èzili Dantò, and you, Mike. Thanks again for putting together this amazing webinar. I've learned a lot every time I watch you, Professor Bello, Professor Smalls. I learned so much about my history and also about myself. As I continue to listen to you, I get more in tune with my spirit and I dream. I have visions. I don't dream, I have visions. So I want to thank you all for that. And speaking into what we can do, what our role is in this revived revolution, how do we take it a step further? Like, I'm listening to you, I'm learning, but the things that I know that I need to do, I feel is intertwined with you, with all of you. Because every time I listen to someone, in my mind, it clicks that, okay, this person in whatever your goal is fits this role. How can I grow a relationship with you, all of you, to manifest my purpose? Because as Professor Bello said, it's not just a one person thing. Like, I know what my specific part is, but in order to really, go there, I need to form relationships, because I don't want any of you to feel like you wasting time with me, because I know that I need to fulfill my mission here. If that makes sense.
May I respond, ladies, if you don't mind?
Yes.
Absolutely.
One of the first things, one of my big brother, and he has me by 2 months, Dr. Wade Nobles, always teaches me. He said, history erases the mystery. Remember, history is your memory. That is the activities of your ancestry. Your memory will instruct you on how to begin to imagine. But you must be aware sometimes we forget the fundamentals: food, clothing, shelter, safety, and security. The absolute fundamental for any human community to even begin to move forward. We have to figure out, how are we going to provide the food, the clothing, the shelter, the safety for our families and our community? We talk about, like, you ask a child, why do you go to college? I want to be a doctor, I want to be a lawyer. No, you want to make some money so you can provide food, clothing, shelter, safety. The same essentials that existed 10,000 years ago as the primal motivator for human behavior. So if we can get that straight, then we look at the history, the experience of our ancestors in resisting the tyranny of the other force. Everything in nature has an opposite. We have an opposite, but we have allowed ourselves to become the opposite instead of destroying or putting in place that opposite in order to have balance. So the first thing I suggest is that study history so you can restore memory and you can begin to imagine the future based on the essential needs of the community. And so any force that threatens that essentiality, you must be prepared to destroy that force without any hesitation. And one other piece I'll add, like we talk about voodoo, which is Africa's sacred science, the science of the universe, the ecology together. That voodoo will teach us something essential about how to lose fear. I grew up in the South, in the woods, in the swamp. My grandmother was the root woman, or the Manbo in your language, who raised me and my siblings. That village I grew up in looked exactly like the ones I found when I went to Africa. We made the nets the same way. We carried things on our heads the same way. When I went to Haiti, I was more at home in Haiti than I in the United States, because Haiti reminded me of that Gullah village in South Carolina. The point I'm trying to make, when my mother gave birth to me, she gave birth to herself and my father. When my mother and father was given birth to, they were given birth to by their mother and father, who had given birth to themselves. If you understand that when your parents gave birth to you, they're giving birth to themselves to expand the experience of life, then you know that you are your ancestors immediately. Then you know what your responsibility is. But first you must restore the memory of your ancestry in order to realize what your responsibility is in going forward to the future.
Professor Smalls, I'll tell you this. I was listening to Professor Bello, and it popped into my mind. I've never thought about my great-great-great-grandmother. And during
you are her. You
yes,
are her going forward.
I am her name. I have her name. I have her name. This is what I'm saying. Like, I've gotten teachings into breathing, learning about the moon. It's like everything is coming into place. And I'll say this, I probably wasn't ready for it before, because I'm not the same person in terms of finding my spiritualness, being or becoming who I am. So with that, that's why I said, like, I know my grandmother, my grandfathers and stuff like that, but how is their DNA? One of the things my father said to me, he's been dead for 20 years. He says, I gave you everything that you needed to know in life in your DNA because you have my DNA. And when my father said that to me at 20 years old, I didn't know that was the last time he was going to ever be able to say anything to me. So at 41 now, it clicks. It makes sense, and I just wanted to say thank y'all for doing this. And and giving us a higher frequency. And please don't ever stop. I'm harassing Professor Bayyinah Bello. But it's love, because I get a fire sparked in me of all the things that I'm learning through this verbal education. I want to be able to put it in a book so that the kids can start learning it, a universal education in a book that can be transcribed verbally if something happens to the book, but a universal education of all the things that we're discussing now and that you've discussed before. I feel like that is one of my main purposes.
Let me interrupt you. I must, because we, in this culture, we think in that way. We can learn this information, we can put it in the book. The only thing that will make this revolutionary is when you become the information. When you become the information and you live the information unequivocally. See, that's why we won in Haiti. When they walked out of that forest, they had become their revolution. They had become their ancestors. They had become the pain. They had become the hurt. They had become the avenger based on that history. They were those people tortured going forward, taking the responsibility. We have to become our truth and live it out in our thoughts, our actions, our associations, and so forth.
But my thing, Professor Small, I'm not going to say anything else after this because I know there's many other people. But I didn't know this because growing up Haitian in Brooklyn, New York, it wasn't the thing to be in the early 80s. And I wanted to know why everybody hated Haitians. But I didn't know that. I didn't find that out until I was in like my freshman year in college taking Caribbean studies and learned fully about the revolution and everything else. I know now, so I teach my children. But even when you are living it and becoming it, how do we get the information to our younger generation firsthand without them having to live most of their life not knowing? That's my thing.
All right, I will say this: know yourself and you will know the universe and all its God. Over 10,000 years ago, we wrote that on the entrance of temples in Egypt, among other places. Know yourself and you will know the universe and its gods. Now, the program that we're into is, I hear Professor Small one time, and I'm ready to go make a book, make a video, make a this, make a that about what I just heard. But the process of becoming, I'm 72 years old. I have been researching and writing my notebooks for years. I started only, and I always said I didn't want to publish until I was 50, because I always knew things had to mature. You had to become it before deciding to share it. You want to share, many of us in the program that we're in now, in this program, first of all, everything is a rush, 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 got to fast, fast, fast. I'm only 72 years old, I've just begun. So take your time to know yourself. Take your time to discover your grandmother, your great-grandmother, your great-great-grandmother. It took me 36, 37 years to do my genealogy and go up to 7 generations. I didn't do no DNA, ask people to make a DNA something for me. I did it step by step, walking a lot on top of many hills in Haiti, on top of many mountains, going down places that I was scared stiff because the thing was like that and I couldn't understand how you could go down it, but yet people do it every day. But you do the work, and you take the time to mature. The mango will not be ready because you want to eat it. You have to wait until the mango reach that very moment. If you wait too long, the rat will eat it before you and leave the rest for you. But if you're attentive, observing, we say here's the steps to knowing yourself. Question everything. Questioning will develop courage. Courage will give you the right to speak, because then you'll be really speaking, because you'll be expressing your own convictions. You will not be reciting people's stuff. So you question brings courage. Courage brings your word. Your word enables you to observe. Observing, then you go to meditation, then you go to creation, then you go to action, and then to creation. And as you go through these 7 steps, you come to know yourself more each time. If you never question anything, you have no courage. With no courage in you, you are developing cowardness. That's what you're building. Each day, you will become more and more of a coward once you're into the coward mood. Coward brings you to submission. Submission brings you to illusion. Illusion brings you to the desire to be seen, to be heard, while you know nothing.
Exactly. I'm not that person.
To correct, I'm not talking about you. We're talking.
No, I know you're talking about in general, but.
So to correct the situation, you begin to question. Questions is the way to learn. Anything we want to learn, question. You question and you give the answer. Start with your own answer. Don't think you always have to have somebody to question. You do have to have questions all the time, but you must learn to answer your questions. And then you can confirm and reaffirm with others.
And I'll tell you this. You said, listen, you know. And when I ask myself the question, I really do know. And so I'll say this, everything you've told me, all of you, I really go and apply it to my life. And I'm not looking for a rush thing, because if it's my purpose, it needs to be right in order for me to fulfill it. However, in order for it to start, I need to have these, Q&As with all of you individually together, just to let you know that there's someone knocking on the window. and that's it. So, and thank you so much with all the works that you do, that really inspires people who are learning about themselves and learning about history, and gives us courage to take other steps forward, and really looking at ourselves in the mirror. So,
well, the questions from Catherine, from Iya, from Chris, from Wedmark, from Kweku, from David. Well, the questions. Catherine is raising her hands.
Met parler.
Met parler.
Okay. So, first of all, j'ai temps là 2 fois déjà, Èzili Dantò ensemble avec Mike Grimes, j'ai temps même 2 fois là déjà, et puis bien content nous là aujourd'hui, bien content j'ai un privilège avec honneur pour là ensemble avec nous aujourd'hui, à Ibobo à tout travail n'a fait, bien fier pour moi là, et puis question m'a posé nous c'est que étant donné me semblant qu'à marcher ensemble avec Haïtien depuis longtemps, depuis plus que 20 ans. Il y a un petit moins, papa c'est haïtien, et puis on colle les épaules à voudouisant depuis longtemps tout. Et puis je travaille dans le domaine éducation. So, actuellement là, je fais un travail, mais je fais un pile travail avec mon travail pour décoloniser l'éducation dans Boston. Excusez-moi pour tout bruit à côté. So, question c'est, là nous parler de invisibilité. Est-ce que ça c'est plus un message pour moun pour haïtien, pour l'autre descendant africain qui victimisé dans système white supremacy, ou bien ça son message pour tout le monde. Et puis moi-même surtout, je suis exactement qui j'aime pour spread message noir. Est-ce que je suis supposé venir fort, j'aime t'arriver fait, ou bien je ne sais pas si nous avons une question, mais just like qui stratégie pour moi-même personnellement, qui j'en ai conseillé moi.
Ça dit là, ou du bagay, est-ce que invisible, ça? De qui?
Non, par exemple, Bayyinah Bello t'a parlé de invisibilité. Genre, surtout femmes yo qui te gen yon l'âge certain, elders yo, moun qui te rive dans l'âge sagesse, yo te kon même krasé dedans yo, dans bouche yo pour moun pa gade yo, pour garçon pa gade yo, pour ne pa gade, pour blanc yo pa gade yo tout.
OK.
Pour yo te capable passer, yo fait travail révolutionnaire sans moun pa remarquer yo. So like thème ça, est-ce que li appliqué à tout le monde, et then surtout pour moi-même, qui j'en t'a conseillé un monde même j'avais pour you know, pour m'avancer.
Yeah, okay. So, moi-même, moi toujours get, all right. So, Karen, is it Karen?
Catherine.
What is it? I'm sorry?
Catherine.
Catherine. Okay, for those who are listening on Facebook and other places, she essentially wanted to know how to be in solidarity as a non-Haitian with our struggle. And I'm not exactly sure. I'm going to let Bayyinah take the invisibility part thing, but I will speak on behalf of Free Haiti and what I do. I think Malcolm X, Jean-Jacques Dessalines, and we have a position at Free Haiti with regards to solidarity of those who are not Haitian. First of all, we are a traumatized people, and it is my position that we have to go inside and heal ourselves. It's also my position that the larger society of folks who want to be in solidarity, I prefer to tell you to go to those who are destroying us and get their foot off of our necks, then to come and you know, become a Manbo or decide that, you know, you want to speak on our behalf. One of the things I have had to deal with on a daily basis are white liberals in our movement, essentially explaining to me that how to fight, how to resist. I don't deal with that. I also don't believe in Santa Claus. So I do not believe in gifts from anyone. I was just about going to address some of what Rose was talking about, and I think that Professor Smalls talked about how we needed to make sure, like before you can have revolution sometimes, you know, the Manbo at BòKayManboInan, she was in her own space. She had the ability of some movement. A lot of our people are so in the grind that I find that they can't even think beyond the grind. They're just enmeshed in the grind. So number one, we have a traumatized people who are enmeshed in the ground just trying to survive. We're living essentially in a prison in Haiti because borders requires that you have a passport from your enemy to travel. So that is the plight of Haitien. And it is unnatural, I believe, to have a human being not be able to see the world and travel and do whatever they want to do in terms of perfect self-expression. That applies to a Caucasian human being, that applies to the children of Èzili Dantò. I think that perfect self-expression and the coming back to source is really what we're here to do. But unfortunately, the structure that we're living under affects us all, including, you know, people who want to be in solidarity with freedom fighters against white supremacy. Malcolm X, no, it's not Malcolm X. Dessalines, during the revolution, we had the Polish and others, the Germans and some Swiss, who, a few hundred, who were assigned certain duties, but we did not trust. And I don't trust any white person at all. And that is based on my history. And I urge all of us, we don't have to trust anybody. We don't have to trust anyone. What you are known by your actions. So I will know you by your actions, not by the fact that you belong to a particular group. So Jean-Jacques Dessalines, I believe, allowed the Polish to load the gun, right? You can load my gun. And what is my gun? I write, I talk about our non-colonial narrative. So if you want to help Èzili Dantò in her work, you will share my work. You will not speak for my work, because I find as a female, I am constantly having to face the larger society who has greater rights than I do. And yet they want to come to my space and speak for me too. So I've always said to white liberals, I think it was Malcolm X that said that the white liberals run the Black revolution, but God runs ours, you know, so the God within me runs my revolution and what I have come here to do. And I think there's a quote that we always send out with regards to solidarity, and it says that the only good white is the one that shoots the bad ones. The only good white is the one that would load the gun of a warrior like the warriors at BòKayMan, the warriors of the Haitian Revolution. So yes, there is solidarity, but that solidarity is defined by those who are in that fight. And for me, I would prefer white folks to go to Washington to take care of that and let me take care of mine. Because it is Washington right now that's holding Jovenel Moïse in power. It is not the Haitian people. So if you want to help us, go to Washington and get their foot off of our necks. Raise children that will not use the greater structure to subjugate mine. So for me, I go back to that quote. If you want to help me, you're wasting your time. If you've come here because your liberation meshes with mine, then we can work together. And that means you have to recognize that the system of white supremacy oppresses you also. You're not coming to give me charity.
I do. I do.
So that's
Yes.
that's definitely my answer. I want to say something to Rose with regards to what she was talking about. So Rose, every year for the last 16 years, I have certain, I'm going to come back to you again, okay? I have certain lessons that we talk about. What I was taught by my elders before I came out here, and these are disciplines. I'm not sure. Okay, so I go back to these things. All right. Okay. Maybe because I am a lawyer, I always like specifics. Okay. So Dr. Henry Clark and Dr. Smalls Professor Smalls, they're always talking about this: food, clothing, shelter, security, safety, right? We need those basics before you can move anywhere else, right? So for IT, for Free Haiti, I'm always saying we have the land, we have to learn how to produce, how to distribute. And we have the philosophy, right? The Laku, which is the family compound. You can go back to the family compound of your ancestors and create that model that is needed. So we need to create, we don't need to consume. And most importantly, we can't look to the left, to the right of the larger society. We have to go inside and be self-reliant. And fear is one of the things in Vodun I learned very, very, very early. In secret societies, that discipline of learning not to flinch, of having what's that thing, under pressure, of being calm under pressure, of turning every defensive position into an attack. Those are things, Rose, I want you to remember. Do not ever be defensive. Turn it into an attack, right? Psychology is very important. One of the other things we need to do, and I always say, is to look. When I came out here in 1994 was when I went back to Haiti, and I met those spirits that were me, and I saw Haitian that didn't see me. One of the things I was given with respect to how I come out into the world is that within the Kanga Mandele, Kanga Bafioti, Kanga Najoki template, we had to choose which we would prioritize. I always prioritize going after Mandele before I prioritize going after the Black collaborators. That is our choice at Free Haiti, because strategically, the Bafioti is employed by Mandele. And so I go after category 1 first. Okay? So I want you to remember that. These are lessons and templates that we live by. I always go after category 1 first. That is the colonists. And I know their names. If you go to my website, we publish it every day, and it is a ceremony. It is my ceremony. We publish their names because if you don't know your enemy, then what are you fighting? So in neocolonialism, you have fake elections, fake aid, fake justice, fake human rights organizations, all of that. But at the end of the day, they will always put in front of you the Black person who's corrupt, the one they created and helped to create. But when they do that, who do you go after? We must look outwards together, not look at the hurting family. So for me, that is a choice and a strategy. I go after category 1. I leave category 0 to lose his job after I take down Mandele. So for me, it's about nixing the fratricide. So if I have a choice in any work that I'm doing, and I have a conflict with an ally or not an ally, I always go after Mandele. I leave that ally or that a brother or a sister, and I say, I will meet you la lot kafua. I will see you in that next intersection. Your attention, my sister, what you put your attention to is currency. So as you go inside to your grandmother, remember, your attention develops what you become.
May I say something to Catherine?
Absolutely.
You know, Dr. Wade Nobles wrote a book. It's called The Island of Meme, and he calls it the Unfinished Haitian Revolution. He went down with the Black Psychiatrists Organization doing the earthquake. And he got the spirit to write that book from that experience. It is an extraordinary document, and I would recommend that you read it, The Island of Meme, M-E-M-E, because what he deals with is this concept of the European mimetic infection on human consciousness. And he deals with the African sacred science and the consciousness it produces in the human being, and what one must do in order to remove one and to capture the other. But he does it in such a brilliant way. It's a wonderful book. He takes history, psychology, and science, and he just weaves it into a tapestry, but he walks you through the stages of the conscious kind of transformation we must go through so that you don't ask the question, what should I do? You know from who you've become what your responsibilities are. I hope that's helpful.
Well,
Thank you very much. I just wanted to refine my question in one way, which is I said I'm not working. That is, I don't yet have an assignment as a teacher in Boston Public Schools, but I'm always working. And one of the big ways in which I'm working is in the fall, I'll be co-leading a training for specifically for white alumni of Wellesley College who want to learn how to be in better solidarity with Black and Indigenous and other people of color, and with doing the least amount of harm, recognizing that that's something that often happens, as you alluded to. So I just wanted to put that in case that helps. And I think specifically I'm wondering, it's not that I don't know, I know in my heart what to say is to be very bold, but I'm also, when you think about what Professor Bello said, and you know, I'm 40, so I know a lot more than I once did, but I'm still, you know, in the journey spiritually. So that's why I asked for the guidance, and as specific as you can be. That's why I was asking. But yeah. But thank you so much.
If you go to Èzili's site, she's very specific on how we can help her with the work she's doing. And it's stated in multiple kinds of places. But on top of learning, getting that information and being able to assist in that way, I'm saying the next step, I don't want you to be there trying to assist me because you're not able to assist me in my freedom. You're able to assist me in getting the tools I need for my freedom. But I also want to see you assist you in your freedom. Your mind is as shackled. Your consciousness is as shattered. Your identity is as broken, maybe even more so, because we're aware enough that we must fight for self-restoration back to ancestry, primal beginning. But I want to see that for you too. And I want you to see that for yourself also. And that's why I think that book will be helpful to you, as well as, again, going to Èzili's page. She's very definitive on the kind of assistance she would like to have if you want to assist in various different ways.
Brother Rick, who is up, there are a couple of people that seems to.
Yeah, I see Kweku.
Yeah, Empress Shah, she was next. Did you still have a question, Empress Shah, or are you good to go?
All right, Brother Kweku, let's go.
Empress Chi, I think. Are you there?
Kweku, you can go ahead and unmute yourself. Go ahead and ask your question.
Thank you, peace. Good afternoon, and honor, respect for Mama Bayyinah, and good to see you again, Professor Small, among some of my favorite elders, and I always learn from them every time they speak, and I'm glad to be able to be in this event, which It's hosted by my dear sister Èzili. So thank you for hosting them, and elders, thank you for coming out. I have always been, ever since encountering it, I've always been intrigued by the quality of the Black consciousness of the Haitian Revolution. And one of the aspects that, well, I guess the aspect of it in total that has been most intriguing to me and most challenging to me is the way that it turns the myth of white supremacy upside down, and so early on in our combat against it as well, and how it was so ahead of its time, I think. So I would love for some expounding on that, and I'll preface the question, or preface the aspect of it that I would love some expounding on is the idea of Haiti becoming this empire where anybody seeking liberty, as soon as they step their foot on the land of Haiti, they would become free and they could be Haitian or Haitien. But going beyond just this national designation or the citizenship designation to provide a character of what an Haitien is, institutionalize that in the Constitution. Not only that, but then to go and say that all Haitians are to be known by the designation Black, and to flip that so early on, flip that division that was bred by the myth of white supremacy, this colorism that still divides many of us today, to say you are all Black, you are all Haitien, and you must all live by these certain qualities in order to maintain your Haitianness. Can you, Mama Bayyinah, expound on that, what that means, or what that meant in that time and what that means for us today?
Thank you for this question. Well, the first thing I would say is that the person speaking is connected to the universe and is looking at things from a distance, or looking at a distance forward that we do not have today okay? He says, number one, so it's clear. The number one thing is freedom. Freedom is not debatable. So if you step foot here, we have to know that, let me start by saying his letterhead says Jacques, Emperor of Haiti, Hayti, comma, Empire of Freedom. So he sees an empire of freedom. Then he makes laws for that empire. And one of the laws says, once you step foot on this empire, you become free. If you're running away from slavery, once you set foot on that empire, on the soil, you become free. And when you are Black, Blacks become citizen. He was very specific. Blacks would become citizen. White, anybody running away from freedom, don't care what your this, that, or the other, your belief system or whatever, you set foot, you become free. A Black person running away from freedom, set foot, becomes free and a citizen. So he makes it very clear the role, what is acquired by each. He goes further, as you said, and says every Haitian is Black, or would be known as Black. Whether your eyes are blue, your hair is blonde, don't care, you're a Black person. So everybody's asking him, but what do you mean? How can everybody be Black? He says, Black. What is Black? Black are those who fight for freedom. So Black is not defined by skin. He left the skin business to little folks who have no understanding of what humans are. And he steps up and tells us Black are those who fight for freedom. So you could be jet Black, but you want to own slaves, then you're not Black because you're not fighting for freedom. So he's very clear on who he wants in the empire, who is qualified to be on the empire, who's qualified to. So we might ask the question, why does it make a difference with you being free and a citizen for some and free? Well, until you prove yourself, what we know of you globally is that you are slavers. But if you say you're running away from freedom, from slavery, and you come here, we'll take you at your word. You'll be free. But now we're going to watch you. Until we watch your actions and see who you are, then you're not qualified to be a citizen. Then you might become qualified to become a citizen. Okay? But those who have been with him all along and fought for freedom and demonstrated their belief in freedom, those are Haitians and they are Black. Their papers will say Black person.
May I assist with that?
He does not, here again, one of the things that he's showing us, you see words, you don't take words the way people give it to you. You have always, people give word meanings to words. So you have to define things for yourself. That's the other example that this situation shows us. But go ahead, please.
Yes, ma'am. I wanted to add something to Kweku's question. When we talk about the Haitian Revolution and we put in its place the Voodoo, when we put in its place the reference back to Guinea, they're talking about a value system. They're talking about a worldview. They're talking about an ideology based on communal, collective, cooperative behavior. And those things define the humanity that they fought for.
Absolutely.
So there is a goal, and there is a platform that represents who you must be to be this free person, to be this Black person. You must take on the value system, the worldview, and the ideology of the mother principle that gives birth to the strength that creates the revolution in the first place. Because the revolution has a goal. You don't strike until your goal is clear. And if we are returning to Guinea, we don't mean it physically. Guinea is in us. It is our worldview, it is our value system, it is our ideology of life. And so I think we need to look very deeply. Remember, these men and women had been cut off for the most part from Western intellectualism and Western body information and knowledge. So what did they have? They had their own. The institution of Guinea was in their minds. It was in their language. It was in their thoughts. It was in their action. And their universe, the university was their culture that provided them and cultivated in them a value system, a way of life, and a worldview that they were willing to die to restore.
Yes, indeed.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So Kweku, this is a everybody. Kweku has actually been to Haiti and lived in Haiti. Kweku, tell me a little bit about your experience there as an African American from Louisiana. How was the experience?
It was like going home, like Professor Small said. You mentioned that I'm from Louisiana, so Haitian people are African cousins to me. I'm a Creole person. My ancestors, as I can trace back, have been free in Louisiana since the early 1700s, and Louisiana was only beginning to be colonized in the beginning of the 1700s. And so they were responsible for creating free spaces in what we call Southwest Louisiana, but if you look at a map, you'll probably call it South Central Louisiana, and the swamps there among the Atacapa people and Choctaw people, and with some French people there as well. And so they came together and they created this Creole language as it's spoken in Louisiana, which is very similar to the Creole of Haiti, and create and maintain their freedom for a few centuries, 300 years. And where I grew up, the area where I grew up, the parish where I grew up happened to be in the same area where I had generations of ancestors for 7 generations live in that area. And I didn't know at the time as a child, but you know, those ancestors made themselves known to me. So I'm grateful for that. And Haiti, I'm grateful to Haiti because Haiti connected me to those ancestors. The spirits in Haiti spent living there as I was looking to repatriate, in a sense, to a space outside of the United States. The spirits in Haiti, the Haitian revolutionary spirit, taught me a lot. And I ended up back in a space where I reconnected with a lot of those ancestors, dozens of them that the family hasn't known prior to now. And so for me, I guess the experience of Haiti has been reconnection to ancestry, and going in that space, not just spending time as a visitor, but being accepted as a brother there, where now I have 3 godchildren, and you know, I can travel around by myself and be Haitien without a problem, and just go and come as I please. I really feel the reception of that. If you step your foot on the land, you're free, and you can be Haitien if you uphold yourself to a particular character, in the spirit of freedom. So I'm grateful to Haiti. I'm grateful for all of those who, like yourself, like Mama Bayyinah, like Professor Small, who continue to remind us of our story of Haiti and all those ancestors who have come and paved the way, you know, to allow me to be here in this space today and bring my ancestors, walk with my ancestors every day.
Nice, nice. Kweku supports Jeune Akin. I was just looking for it, Kweku, so I could play it, but I couldn't find it for the moment. Kweku is supporting many indigenous Haitian youth groups in Haiti. And last night he was sending me a video of their presentation for BòKayMan. And I was just looking for it so I could play it for you guys, but I can't find it. I'll try to find it before this is over.
Beautiful. I saw a copy of it.
Did you see that? Oh,
yeah,
it was amazing.
I sent it all over Africa last night.
Yeah. Thank you so much for all you do, Kweku. Is there any more questions, or should we move on to the next piece? Let's see. So
we have
okay, go ahead.
We have 2 hand raised.
Go ahead.
Aya, go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question.
We have 8 minutes before this is over, so please go on. Hello?
Hello.
How are you?
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you so much for sharing all this information. And I have 2 questions. One is, when is the next one coming? Because we need this weekly, you know, but I know that everyone's busy and living their lives, but we need to connect more as often as we can. And then I'd like to know, there's a lot of talk amongst Africans born in America about reparations and now Susus. And economically, what can we do here as Africans here in America to support our Haitian families and networks that help to stabilize families and, you know, provide services for youth, for Haitian youth?
Did you have someone in particular you want that addressed to? Or
well, I'll respond so that you can respond, because the question is so specific. And I think your foundation and Felicite, Sister Bayyinah Foundation would be a good place to start in terms of finding out what kind of assistance, what kind of donations and things you need to continue that particular work. And since we have two very significant African women, Haitian women, who are doing this significant work, and you have significant organizations, I think you ought to project both of them as being places where people can begin to make contributions and assistance.
Thank you. Thank you. And also, you mentioned, when is the next one? I want to point out that every Thursday, there's Bayyinah and Friends, and you certainly can join that.
Okay.
And for Free Haiti, we do 6 teach-ins. So the next one's going to be September 20th, and it's going to be all about the greatest hero who ever lived, the only, the one, Jacques, ZiliD. So you should come there. And we're preparing something really good for you. So come on that time of September to October to learn about his words, how he walked, what he said. You know, he said, "I only want the braves with me here," and all of those things. So in terms of reparations, could you tell me exactly what you wanted to talk about in terms of that for African Americans? Are you making a comparison with the, like, we you know, Haitian require restitution for the independence debt? We haven't even gotten to reparation for 300 years of enslavement, but we have asked, and Free Haiti sends out a letter every January 1st and every November, just symbolically, to the French for the $26 billion they owe us for making Haiti pay after we won in battle. We had to pay 122 years from 1825 to 1947. And we ended up paying that last slave trade debt to the biggest power on the planet, the United States of America. Not to mention the fact that they cut it out our gold back in 1914. So yeah, so that's the reparations we're looking for. And that doesn't even cover colonialism. That's just hard cash they took from us, right? So those are the things, you know, people should be educated about with regards to at least Haitian reparation. The 28 billion, 26 billion, whatever that amount is at the moment, it was the 122 years we were forced to go back to doing sharecropping, just like US Blacks were forced back to do sharecropping. And so there is a cost to that, but we do understand, and it is my position that, you know, I just want them out of Haiti at the moment. We just want them out, and we want we are a country with resources, and we want the resources of our nation to be what elevates Haiti, because if the resources of Haiti were used for the 13 million Haitians, each one of them would be multi-billionaires, multi-millionaires, because we have mountains and mountains of iridium, an element found only in South Africa. It's an asteroid, and it's worth a lot of money. We have our culture, as you can see. As you can see, we have our culture. We can take a young Haitian child with this beautiful culture and become ambassadors all over the world to just teach, you know, the elements and values of being human that our ancestors did. And when I say they did the most awesome, unparalleled, we're talking about in a universe where you had slave religions, you know, whether it was Hinduism, whether it was the Abrahamic religions, and they all accepted as normal slavery. And Jean-Jacques Dessalines and Gunn-Guiton and Toya and Défilé and Cécile Fatima and all, they said no. And they were willing to die for that. And that has set a new moral high ground. So I think, you know, if the Chinese can go and have tea and Japanese can have martial arts. You know, we have Vodun. We have this culture, which is herbal cures, bad vibe makeovers. It's dance. It's science. I mean, it's our science that's being used as anesthesia these days. It is an ancient way of life, and it could elevate who we are and what we are. And we don't ask for anything except to allow us to develop, as Jean-Jacques Dessalines and Grand Guiton and Toya wanted us to develop. Without Michel Sisson, these U.S. ambassador to Haiti at the moment, or Ellen Lalume, because I named their names, coming in and putting a man in power that would make pedophilia legal, for instance, which is totally unacceptable to me and all Haitians that I know. We're trying to get rid of the pathologies of slavery, because that's what I say, you know, we have our own internal traumas to deal with. There is patriarchy within our society. There is colorism. There is trauma from 300, 500 years of enslavement. And we have to heal that. We have to figure out how to do that. But I want to hear what you mean. Are you talking about the conversation that's being had in America about reparations?
Yes, the conversation, many conversations being had about reparations. And now there's this a popularity in terms of African people coming together and doing futus. But I'm thinking maybe we can redirect some of our collective money to send to Haiti, to your organization, to Professor Bayyinah Bello's organization, you know, so that we can, you know, connect and support one another in ways that we need to, since we're having those conversations. Because a lot of people talk about reparations and they're in futus, but they don't really know what to do with those funds. They are just recycling them back into the American economy that is continuously slaughtering us and oppressing us in various ways. So that's my thought on that.
I think Professor Smalls could answer that.
Yes. Well, the first thing, everywhere we are owed reparations. Okay. There isn't one group who's owed reparation more than another group. The Europeans declared war on us more than 2,000 years ago. They decimated our continent, our culture, our families, our home. They carried us abroad into other parts of the world and practiced genocide on us in ways that had never been heard before in history. All of them owe us reparation, and all African communities should be demanding reparations. And we can see it all over the world. We're hearing from continental governments now where they're used to demanding reparations. Other Caribbean communities where the governments are talking about reparations, and again, in North America. So I think that part is clear. It's not just the reparations, but there's the repairing for the damage done. The culture, the historical aesthetics. You got a bunch of white people running around Egypt still digging up our ancestors and calling them mummies and making money off of them. Grave robbing, thieves. We want reparations for that, and we want the integrity of our ancestors restored at some point. You know, and so that's a big thing around the world. But the last piece is that we in the United States alone, in the last 6 to 7 years, have been spending $1.1 to $1.3 trillion for garbage from our enemies. And so any community or any group that you're associated with, or any small people you're associated with, you should work to discuss directing some of that capital to help these sorts of organizations that is represented by Sister Èzili and Sister Bayyinah, and they will introduce you to other kinds of spaces where you can also encourage others to contribute.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we are coming to an end. In the name of all of the ancestors, all who stood 229 years ago, in the name of all those, as Professor Smalls just said, they declared a war on us centuries ago. So our line goes back. Depuis le Marasa, le Mont, le Mystère. I pour libation. This heartbeat only beats to bring back the ancestor within. I will have our Bayyinah take us out. Mike, are we good?
Oh, we're good to go.
Okay, everybody, thank you so very much for coming. I hope that this offering, burnt offering to the ancestors, this candle that we light today, in the name of all who stood with Boukman, Cécile Fatima, Marie Dédé, Dédé Magritte, Grand Toya, Grand Guiton, Dessalines, Henri Christophe, in the name of all of them, in the name of the unknown Maroons, we are the blood prince. We are what they fought for. And we hope to deserve and to continue to try to be worthy of their great, great, great sacrifice. Bayyinah, please take us out. Tell us what we should understand and see about those ancestors. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming.
Well, like we said before, work on yourself, work on the discipline. Create what you want. Create that disciplined, organized person with purpose and constantly in pursuit. And I will leave you with this song, Ibolele, who is the memory of humanity. So anytime you need to remember, you need to know what you don't know anymore. Remember, know yourself, and you will know the universe and all its gods.
Thank you, Professor Smalls.
Ibolele o, Ibolele o, mayama gamun pajwe o. Ibolele, Ibolele o, Ibolele o, mayama gamun pajwe o. Adults don't play. Adults have objectives. Adults have discipline. Adults have victory every time they work for what they want. Be blessed, be healthy, be wealthy, be powerful. That's who you are.
Ayi bobo, ayi bobo, ayi bobo.
Ayi bobo.
Thank you, Professor Smalls. Thank you, Mike, for all your help and everyone who came here. Thank you, Bayyinah. Honneur et respect.
Thank you, everyone.
Merci tout le monde.
Merci.
Great job, Èzili. Good to see you.
Bye, hello, friends. Glad to see you here. Thank you for all your help. Everyone who helped with this. Thank you so much.
And greetings, Professor Small. Greetings, Professor Bello.
Greetings to you, friends, and thank you.
Okay.
Love you guys.
Thank you so much for coming, all of you. Royal Sparkle, I see you. I know you've been here for all 3 rows. Thank you very much. See you guys September 20th.